Okay, I think we're ready to go. Okay, once again, welcome everyone. My name is Monique Bird. I am the Director of Marketing here at the UTA College of Education. As I mentioned, we're here to talk about a number of different degrees and certifications here within the College of Education. Most of you probably know this, but we prepare people to become teachers, principals, higher ed administrators, policymakers, people who want to go into the professoriate, really any role within education we try to have a handle in. I've got with me Dr. Daniel Robinson. He is our Associate Dean of Research, and he wears a few other hats. He's also happens to be the Program Director for the Master of Education in Mind Brain Education program, and he does a couple of other things. He used to serve as one of our department chairs, and so we're really glad to go here. We're going to go, like I said, quickly through each of the programs, but as I mentioned, please do ask any questions that you have in the chat, and if you haven't already put where you're from and what degree you're looking at, I'd love to hear that. And lastly, we have with us Kathleen Ritchie. She is one of our newest graduate advisors, and we're so happy to be here. She's probably not going to say too much today, and she's going to keep her camera off for most of the time. But if there's a question that I can't answer, we're hoping that Kathleen may be able to. We'll give her a little bit of grace, though, because she is new. And so if she doesn't know the answer, we'll make sure to write that down and get that for you. So anywho, thank you all. And with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Robinson just to talk about, why you might want to be interested in going into education.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. These are really great sessions for us that we're able to do this remotely, safely for everyone, but you also get to see someone sort of live and face-to-face, which is good if you have questions. Like Monique said, I'm Associate Dean for Research, and I also serve as Director of the Master's Program in Mind Brain Education, which has been with us for about 10 years. And we recently revised the program, and we now have a completely online version of that. So if anybody's interested in that program, please jump in and ask me questions tonight. I'm happy to answer those. Like Monique said, we have lots of graduate programs in education, and some of them are for like some of you folks who are teaching to get advanced certification. Others are, to get a master's or a PhD. Just an update, we are in the process of getting approval for a brand new PhD program in curriculum instruction. We already have one in educational leadership and policy studies, but we are getting one in curriculum instruction that will start in the fall of 2023. And then we also have recently gotten approval for a master's and a certificate program in instructional learning and design technology. And that master's program is going to be completely online, like the Mind Brain Education. And we also have another relatively new, completely online master's program, and that is in special education. And of course, we have a master's program in literacy that's been around for a long time, and that's for advanced certification. So I could go on all night listing all of our degree programs, but relevant to the slide, and I'm not going to go through all the bullet points here, but this one is mainly for educators in terms of, those of you who want to go into teaching or remain teaching. And for those of you who just simply want to advance your career and advance your career opportunities, you may get a master's degree. You may decide to go on to get a PhD, and those obviously open doors that would not be available if you did not have those more advanced degrees. So great, you can go on to the next slide. So what we offer, UTA is a pretty special place in terms of adapting to the needs of our students in the DFW area and beyond. And so, we have a lot of, like I've already mentioned, online only classes, in-person classes, and hybrid classes where you will have a blend of each. The program I teach in right now is completely online, but since we have a lot of students from the DFW area, we're looking to have 1 or 2 events per semester where people can get together in person safely, of course, and at least get that a little bit of human contact where it's not simply through Zoom or Teams or something like that. We are a Texas Tier 1 institution and a Carnegie Tier 1 institution, and those both bring us to the top in terms of status among universities nationwide and worldwide. Those honors are bestowed upon us based on a number of factors. One is the number of PhD students that we graduate per year. Another is the research funds that we spend each year. So we are very proud that UTA now is standing shoulder to shoulder with institutions like Texas A&M, UT Austin, Rice, as one of the top universities in the state of Texas. Our 5-year retention rate is 80% for our UTA College of Education graduates. So we're producing folks that are able to be successful in their field and stay in the field. We have dedicated faculty, mentorship opportunities, and again, specialized expertise and advanced career opportunities. So go on to the next slide. What can you expect? What are we looking for in applicants? So we're looking for folks who, just like I mentioned, are wanting to advance their career and wanting to go into the field of education. So we get a wide range of people who apply to our programs. Many come from education in terms of graduate programs, but there are also some people who have been in the business world for several years and decide that their passion is calling them back to the classroom where they want to make a difference in the lives of students. Some go into more of the administration side of education where they might serve as a principal, superintendent, or even like a curriculum specialist. And what we're looking for in applicants is, just a real desire to contribute. I mean, we don't want anybody going into the field to just, simply get a job. We want someone who's searching for a vocation where you sort of have that calling. And, our application process, I'm very proud of what we do in terms of, we don't require the GRE for our master's programs, but what we do is we allow students sort of a foot in the door and an opportunity to sort of prove yourself. So, you can submit GRE scores if you've taken the GRE, which is the graduate record examination, sort of like the SAT or ACT, but only for grad school. If you take that and you get decent scores, you certainly submit them. If you take it and don't get decent scores, you can submit it. And if your scores, aren't as high as you think they should be, we'll look at other things. And for example, we'll look at your undergraduate GPA. If your undergraduate GPA is above a 3.0, most students are admitted. And let's say that you're in one of those unique situations where your GRE scores aren't anything to brag about, and your undergraduate GPA you did like me in college, and you might have had a little bit too much fun 1 or 2 semesters, and your GPA wasn't where you want it to be. We may still admit you, and we would admit you conditionally or provisionally, where you have 1 semester, and in your first 9 hours or 3 classes, you have to maintain or achieve a 3.0 GPA, which is an average of a B grade. And if you do that, then you stay in the program. And if you don't do that, then, well, you had a semester to try it out. And, I'd say, I'll bet we have at least 95% of our students that have been admitted provisionally that end up, completing. So it's a good thing that we do with the admissions process. I think it shows flexibility, and still, we try to make sure that we are admitting people who are successful. We said we have principal certification, we have teacher certification. The principal certification program is in our Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies. I'm going to click out of my chat so I can read the entire screen here. But principals, like teachers, need to be certified. They need to pass a certification exam, and the program preparation for both is preparing you to be able to pass that exam. Make sure you have all the coursework, experience, practicum, all that necessary. The principal programs aligned with the Ed Leadership Constituent Council standards. And like I said, most people who go into that are people who've been classroom teachers for a while, want to advance in K-12 education. For teacher certification, we don't offer anything beyond the master's program for teacher certification, but like I said, we offer programs that allow you to get initial certification and advanced certification. My cat is bugging me because I'm not paying enough attention to her. Okay, well, that's good. We can move on to the next one.
The cat wants to get a, a certification, and this just goes into a little bit more detail for the principal certification program.
Yeah, the cat is saying, what about me? I'd like to be a principal, maybe get out of this gig that I'm in right now where I just simply full-time bug Dan while he's on Zoom calls. Yeah, so you get a master's of education, educational leadership with principal certification, or if you don't want the master's, you can get the certification only. And that program is offered 100% online. So people who actually work for a living can do that in the evenings, weekends, things like that, where it works for you. Teacher certification program, you can get certified and not get a master's degree, or you can also get a master's degree and get certified. It's kind of whatever works for you. If you simply want to teach, you may choose to pass on the master's degree. If you want that master's degree with the certification to allow you, more opportunities in the future, then it's a good idea to get the master's degree with that. You get a full semester of in-person field placement, and yeah, you get a dedicated certification offer, and we prepare you to pass those certification exams. The Master's in Education and Teaching with Initial Teacher Certification, that's for students who currently don't have a teacher certification. You've already got a bachelor's degree. You don't want to go back and take 4 more years to get a bachelor's degree. So you can go in and get a 2 years master's and still come out with an initial teacher certification. You get clinical teaching experiences and the same as what you would get as an undergraduate, because as an undergraduate, you may know your junior and senior year are mainly your main years in the teacher certification program. So it's just, in addition to the bachelor's.
Dan, one question that I get a lot from students is, why should I get a master's? I want to become a teacher. Kind of what are some of the benefits for students over going ahead and getting that advanced degree in their teaching field before they graduate?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Sometimes you get that teacher certification and you're at the school for a few years, or let's say 10 or 20 years, and you think like, well, I'd like to try something else. There's some other opportunities within this school, the school district that are coming up, but all of them require a master's degree, not just a initial teaching certification. So like I said, like a curriculum specialist or a department leader or something like that, you may have to have a master's degree. So my advice is, if you can do it, get that master's along with the teacher certification, because it allows you more opportunities and flexibility in the future. And then our certification areas, as my cat is walking by trying to step on my keyboard and mess this all up. We have early childhood through grade 6 in English as a second language core subject area. That is basically our basic elementary certification area. But notice we have ESL in there because in Texas, all teachers are trained in English as a second language minimum. And then we have mid-level certification if you're interested in teaching grades 4 through 8. I know that sounds kind of weird. Let's say I want to teach 5th grade. Well, you could either go the mid-level route, or you can do the EC6 route, they call it. If you want to teach, beyond 8th grade, you have to get a secondary certification. And then there's all level EC12, and that mainly applies to areas like art, physical education, things like that. And then we also offer a master's in special education with initial special education certification. And here's more information on the MED in special education. And this is, like I said, pretty brand new. We offer this 100% online. So, for those of you who are already teaching and you'd like to get a master's in special ed and also be certified in special ed, this is pretty much ideal. Yeah, 100 all online. You still get the in-classroom clinical teaching field experiences. We have people supervise you remotely, or have people there at your school that are observing you, and you can apply for the Texas EC12 special ed certification. Very good. And then just the masters in special education, who for those of you who are already certified, just want a master's in special ed and don't need the certification, we also offer that program too. And we have 3 tracks available. I think one is like autism. Another one is like behavior disorders. And so depending on what area of special ed you want to go into. And then, hey, I know something about this one, the MED in Mind, Brain, and Education. This is ideal for those who desire to understand the science of learning. So you hear that term learning sciences a lot. We really try in this program to offer something where we try to really bring to the front the truth about education in terms of what works and what doesn't. So for example, one of the courses I'm teaching right now is titled Debunking Educational Interventions and Educational Myths. So our students right now are reading about things that sometimes are highly touted within a district. Maybe you're encouraged to do professional development in a certain area, and you think, I'm not sure this is really that effective or real. Well, we try to expose that. We try to test it and debunk it. And then, of course, I'm teaching next January is more focused on intro to mind, brain, and education, but it really focused on those things we actually know that have good research support that works. Understand the role of education shaping research. Yeah, I can talk all day about the previous slide. MED in curriculum instruction. That's for certified teachers who simply want to become advanced practitioners. So we have several degree options, and we also have online options available too, especially for those who want to get a master's in STEM, math or science, something like that. We have those. I already mentioned literacy. So yeah, very good. And then we also have this dual master's degree with social work. Our special ed faculty and some people from social work got a federal grant a couple of years ago, and they proposed this new program where you can get a sort of a dual master's degree with ed leadership, higher education, and a master of social work. You specialize in mental health and substance misuse, and also community administrative practice concentration. You can become licensed in that area. So that's a neat program for those of you who might be interested. And then we have the MED in Ed Leadership, Policy Studies with higher ed emphasis. Explore concepts like diversity inclusion, ed leadership, research management. That's for people who really would look to be working in sort of a college or university setting. And very, very familiar with those programs. A lot of those folks will work like, vice president for diversity or dean of students at a university or something like that. If you're interested in residence life, that's a good area to go into also. So the question is, what don't we have for opportunities in terms of furthering your education? Bachelor's to PhD, we have sort of fast track programs that are faster, more affordable to get your MED and a PhD in those programs. Students are admitted first to MED higher ed program. They complete 80% of the courses, and then they join the PhD cohort after being evaluated. The remaining 20% of courses are taken as PhD electives. So if you really want the fast track to a PhD, we have a way for you to do that. And then finally, the PhD in Ed Leadership and Policy Studies. That is one that will allow you to be a superintendent if you're a current principal and you need a PhD to be a superintendent, or if you want to serve in other administrative capacities, you can certainly do that. So, and we also have a PhD emphasis in higher education. So if you'd like to be a university president one day, again, in other administrative roles in higher education, that's a good program to prepare you for that.
Woo, I know that was a lot, everyone.
Yeah, maybe somebody else should talk instead of me for a while, because they're going to say, I'm going to listen to this guy all night.
We'll trade off and I'll talk a little bit. And I'm sorry, I think we had a question. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, sorry, I can't get my camera to work. Don't know what's going on, but my name is Kiera, and my question is, for the dual program to get your PhD with educational leadership and a concentration in higher education, would that be a bachelor's, like dual with bachelor's in to get to your PhD, or?
I think you might be actually combining a couple of things. So we do have a dual degree, that's with social work, but I think you're talking about the bachelor's to master's degree. And so that's for students, and Dan or Kathleen, correct me if I'm speaking anything incorrectly, but that's for students who already have a bachelor's degree and they know they want to get a PhD. We get a lot of students who they're already like, they're in education and they already kind of know this is my field and I want to take it to the furthest possible levels. And so they know they want to get that PhD. And so they come in with the master's, they come in and they start at the master's program. Basically, once they finish about 80% of their master's coursework, they're able to start the PhD. So it's a really nice way to kind of basically fast track if you know that you're definitely going to be getting a PhD.
Yeah, I think she's referring to that slide that we showed where it's bachelor's to PhD and you sort of get a master's along the way. But you know, that's a really good question. That's sort of what I did. When I started grad school, I initially thought I was just going to get a master's. And after one semester, I'm like, okay, I need to plan out my roadmap for just getting a PhD. So yeah.
Right. 'Cause I already have my bachelor's, so I would be able to start the master's program, do 80% of that, and then I would switch to the PhD.
Yeah,
Yes.
what's your bachelor's degree in?
My bachelor's degree is in political science, which is why I'm a little confused because I'm not a teacher. I work in higher ed as an admissions counselor. And so I'm not really sure which route to take for that.
There are no prerequisites for the master's or PhD in terms of coursework that you need to take. Now, for a master's, you need 30 hours. For a PhD, you need 90 hours. So the PhD is 60 hours beyond the master's degree. So that's the bottom line. You can't get a PhD with less than 90 hours beyond the bachelor's.
Okay.
Good question. We're going to go ahead and move on. But if you have any other questions, write them down and then we'll get to them at the end. And the same thing applies to everyone else. You can put them in the chat or you can just write them down if you've got a piece of paper or you can use a phone. Sorry, I'm a little old school, so I'm used to using paper. But if you got your phone, you can put it on there. And then we'll ask those at the end. So let's talk about salary, right? Because we always want to know that, and I did not put salary projections for everything. I just kind of put like a teacher salary basically, because that's what I get a lot of questions about. And a lot of people are very concerned. You know, you hear those rumors, teachers don't make any money, but the median salary in our areas is about $56,000. Several schools are about $57,000, $58,000. That's for a first year teacher with a bachelor's degree only. Starting out, and that's pretty impressive. I don't know what Dan's first salary was, but mine was not nearly as close. I was in a different field. I'm not going to say what major because I don't ever want to bash another major, but I was just in a different field and my salary is very far from that. And in fact, we're actually getting ready to hire a recruiter, and I'm looking at people's job applications and I'm seeing what they're making in teachers. Once you become like, you know, the department leads, instructional coaches, there's really so much potential for you to take your career to the next level. And a master's degree can definitely help do that. Not everyone chooses to do that. Sometimes people just want to get a master's just for the sake of the master's. But here's just a few projections. Pretty much every school offers some kind of stipend if you have a master's degree, as well as if you're specializing in specific programs where they have high needs, special education, bilingual, STEM, ESL, and those kind of vary depending on the school's need. But just know that you do have a lot of potential with a master's degree. And then you see some people who go on, especially once you get to the PhD level, and they become, they want to go into consulting, they want to maybe go into corporate recruiting, policymaking, a lot of different options. The other question that I get a lot is, what is this going to cost me? That is so important. And so this link, obviously you can't click it now because it's on the presentation, but we'll send out that later. You can also find it on the UTA website. If you just Google UTA tuition estimator, it's usually the first result that comes up on Google. This is a really handy tool, and I refer probably about 90% of the students that I interact to this calculator because it's going to give you a really good estimate within usually about a few $100s of what your cost is going to be. I say it's an estimator because sometimes we have students that they have a specific situation. Maybe if they're an international student, or maybe there's something just specific about their circumstance. Maybe they need a few extra classes or whatever. And so it is an estimate, but it's a pretty good estimate that will really help you kind of gauge what this is going to cost. I put the estimate for here's a sample student cost. I put it for 9 hours for a full-time student for this past fall. A lot of master students only take 6 hours. I just happened, when I did my master's, I just happened to go through and did 9 hours at a time. So that's what I put. But if you would do less hours, it would be less than that. And so that's just kind of something to note. And so this is about the cost that you would get if you go through that tuition estimator for your tuition and fees. And so, okay, great. So now you've learned a little bit about our programs. We're going to get to the questions in just a second. But your next steps, you're going to apply on applytexas.org. If you're applying for this spring or this summer, you're using applytexas.org. If you've been on that site, you'll know it's a state site and it could use a little love. And thank goodness the state has acknowledged that. And they actually have a new site starting fall 2022 that's called goapplytexas.org. And so if you're applying for fall 2022 or after, that's the site you're going to use. Those are the only two differences. You'll pay your application fee. You'll submit all of the different documents. Those are going to vary a little bit depending on your background, what program you're applying to, but this is just kind of the basic info. Make sure to apply for to submit your FAFSA for federal financial aid so that you can be considered for that. And then also, lastly, once you apply to UTA, you'll basically get you'll get an email that has information with your MyMav account. MyMav, if you've been at another university, it's basically the university's portal. This is where you're going to do a lot of your student stuff. And what I really love about MyMav is once you get that account, you can actually check your admission status. You can see if any documents are missing, and that's so crucial because every program is a little bit different. And so if they realize, oh, you put in one reference, but you actually needed 2 for this particular program, it'll usually go through there. Every now and then, if there's some things missing, you might get a direct email from an advisor, but a lot of the things that you need, if we're missing any type of documents or any kind of transcripts or anything, that will be in MyMav. And so please do check that frequently, and also just check your email as well, just to make sure that if the advisors are emailing you about anything that you need, we can make sure we get that in a timely manner so that they can finish processing your application. And then last but not least, you will meet with your advisor. All of our majors do have to meet with an advisor before they can register for classes. And this is really just to make sure that you're on track and you're prepared. And our advising team is amazing. Kathleen is on here, and I saw her answer at least one question in the chat, but our advisors are really amazing. They work hard, and they're some of the most knowledgeable people. And even though Kathleen is new, she's already surpassed me as far as the knowledge that she has, because they really do work hard. And so do know that the requirement to schedule an appointment with an advisor is for your good. Please note, you don't have to wait until that last step to meet with an advisor. You can meet with them at any point in your process. If you want to explore degrees, we do have recruiters, and you can talk to a recruiter if you want to explore a degree, but you can also talk to an advisor. If you have a transfer question, you went to another university, whatever, you can talk to an advisor at any point in the process. Whew, so that was a lot, like I said, just really quick. Some quick reminders for the deadlines. Our most recent deadline coming up is November 1. So that's just in a few days if you're thinking about applying for spring. So please go ahead and start your application. I would actually start tonight. That way you can start to see what materials you might be missing and what materials you might be needed. And then I've got the other deadlines here. These are the general deadlines. There are 2 programs that have different deadlines. The PhD, they only admit a fall cohort. And that deadline, the early deadline is March 8th. And then the final deadline is May 1st. And then I am having a blank. It's the MED in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies with the Higher Education Administration emphasis. So folks who want to go into higher ed or who want to stay in that field and just get more expertise, that one has a couple of deadlines. I think their deadline is actually December 1. And I'm sure Kathleen will correct me if I'm wrong. So just kind of note that those 2 programs do have slightly different programs, but this is pretty much for everything else. And these deadlines are on our website, uta.edu/education, uta.edu/education, in case you forget. Woo! Okay, I'm not going to go through all these because we're going to have the presentation on our website that you guys can go through, but these are just some useful links that I like to give students and refer to students so that they kind of know other resources within the university that will help. A big one is going to be this link. This is where you're going to schedule your appointment with an advisor. And then last but not least, you'll find that there's contact information for if you have a question about, and I'm sorry, I actually meant to update this. Ted is one of our recruiters, but he's really not, he's not an admissions person. And so please note that if you have admissions questions, he might be able to answer some of those, but he's really a recruiter and we actually have other recruiters. And so I'll put my information in the chat. And if you have any questions, you can ask me for that. But if you have any advising questions, Kathleen Ritchie and Berhani DeLuccio, those are probably the best two people for the advising questions. And they do different programs. So just kind of keep that in mind. I think that was it. We went through really fast because we wanted to be mindful of everyone's time, but let's start going through the questions. I see that Kathleen went ahead and answered one, but I'll just ask it out loud just so that we've got it for the group. So the individual was asking, is there an entrance exam required? She may have missed that.
Hi, everyone. It's Kathleen, one of your advisors. I'm not able to get my camera to work, so I'm sorry about that. But no, there are no entrance exams required for our master's program. You would just want to reach out and ask about the specific admissions requirements for the program that you're interested in.
Yeah, I think the only thing that they might have potentially, that it's not really a true entrance exam in my opinion, but it's a PACT exam for people who are looking for teacher certification. Kathleen, are you able to elaborate on that any, or do you want me to?
Yeah, so I don't really consider the PACT an entrance exam necessarily, kind of like you were saying, Monique, but the PACT exam is applicable to those who would like to pursue specific content areas. And so they would take the PACT for that particular area. We are looking for a minimum score. I don't recall what that score is off the top of my head, but you would just send those PACT scores to your advisor for them to be evaluated.
Perfect. And I see that we have Ms. Hollis in the chat, and I do remember meeting you. I think I told either Dan or Dr. Hugh Kellum about you. I forget which one I told. But she's the individual that was interested in the like basically the e-learning track. And so we had a nice little conversation about that program. So that's a pretty awesome one. And actually, I think I'm not really seeing any other questions in the chat. Am I missing anyone? Please feel free to raise your hand if I've missed a question or just retype it in the chat. There's not a lot of messages in here today, but I do want to make sure that I get to everything. Dan, while we wait for people to get their last minute questions together, one question that I get a lot is people who know they want a master's degree, but they're really not sure which path. And you can answer this, or Kathleen maybe too, because she probably has some good insight. She's really a leader in the education field. And so either one of you, feel free to hop in with how, you know, students can kind of really narrow down and determine what might be a good fit for them.
I always think it's a good idea if you're wanting to sort of remain working in your, you know, in your school or in the same area, a district, something like that, and you have your eye on a certain position, or if you don't know what you would be able to do with a master's that you can't do now, I would talk to your supervisor, talk to a principal, talk to a superintendent, just tell them, you know, like, hey, I'm very happy in my job here, but, you know, looking towards the future, I'd like to, you know, think about opportunities for advancement, and just talk to them about, you know, what will a master's do for me? What kind of jobs should I be qualified for? What are some of the jobs that are being advertised right now that require a master's degree? You might want to take a look at, you know, your region's job site and just kind of browse through there, because many will require a master's degree, and that's a good way for you to decide whether a master's degree is right for you.
Perfect. You know, another question I get a lot is just about electives. There's a set of core classes for every degree program, just like your undergraduate. It's the same here, but then you take electives, and electives are really your way to really kind of expand upon what you are required to learn with a few extra. And so how do students pick good electives that are really going to align with their degree program? And two-part question. Are there any electives that you want to brag on?
Well, every instructor thinks that, you know, the classes we teach are the most important class that a student can take. So that's going to be a little bit biased, but you know, we right now we have 3 relatively new online master's programs in our Department of Curriculum Instruction. The special ed one, mind brain education, and then also our brand new one in, like you said, e-learning or instructional learning and design technology. And I'm meeting with the heads of those other 2 programs next week to talk about, you know, electives and how we can lay those out, because like in our program, you take 3 classes or 9 hours of electives. So for some of our students, you know, they are getting a master's in mind brain education. They may want to take 3 courses in instructional technology. They may want to take 3 courses in special education. You know, if you can find courses in your area that's something that you would sort of almost kind of like to minor in, that's the way I view our elective. Something that you'd like to you know, sort of fill out your portfolio in terms of, hey, I took 3 classes in special ed, or I took 3 classes in instructional technology. So, you know, if they have a position that opens up and we need really someone with you know, instructional learning design background, I've got 9 hours in that, and that also opens up your options. But you know, for us, with the online only programs and some programs, you know, being hybrid, some face to face, you want to make sure you talk to your advisor, because some electives, you know, that you might want to take if you're in a completely online program are not offered online only. And so you have to be careful and search for those that are offered online only in the same format, semester long versus, you know, accelerated, a 7-week program. So you want to make sure you talk to your advisor before you think about those.
Yeah, really good point. And one thing that I forgot to say, the advisors, this is their busy season. They are advising students. And so if you go in to schedule an appointment and you see, oh, they're booked up for, you know, the next week or so, they do have a couple of really good options that you want to be aware of. And one is like a Wednesday night chat. They do it every Wednesday, I think from 5 to 6:30. Kathleen, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct.
Yeah, and basically it's walk-in, but it's virtual. But basically you go and you can basically bring like an unofficial copy of your transcript, and they will actually go through your transcript with you and kind of talk to you with your options. And I'm really bragging on our advisors because I really like them, and I've been in higher ed for a long time, but I'm really impressed with the attention that they give every single student and their dedication to really make sure that they're here to help you both succeed as a student, but then also meet your long-term goals for your career or whatever it is that you're trying to do, if that's going to be continue your education past the master's. And so please do feel free to take advantage of that. A few other options. I put my email in the chat. You can always reach out to me with questions. I'm a little busy too, but I do have a little extra time. And if you go to our website, uta.edu, I'll put the link in the chat. That first homepage actually has like a kind of, if you scroll down just a little, it's got like a start here for future students. You'll see a link for the recruiters. And so you can actually click that. And that's a really good, like if you're still in the exploratory phase, that's a really good place to start. And we actually have 3 recruiters for the online master's in education in mind brain education, as well as in special education. So you can set an appointment with either one of them, or you can set an appointment with me. And I actually cover pretty much all the programs for the moment. And so just know that we're available and we're here to be a resource for you kind of as you continue your journey. One thing I did forget to say though, for those 2 programs, mind brain education and the master in special education, they are 100% online. And because of that, our online programs have a little bit different price structure. They're a little bit cheaper. And so for example, with those 2 programs, it's about $3,500 for an out-of-state student taking 6 hours, and about 3,300 for an in-state student. And it's actually a little bit lower, but we just round up. And so just kind of know that those are some perks. They're shorter programs, they're 30 credit hours. Sometimes, a lot of times you see a master's degree at a 36 credit hours. And so just kind of know that there's some really nice perks, and we're more than happy to talk to you guys about specific programs. This is really just to give you guys almost like a little smorgasbord, like a little sample of the different offerings that we have. Our educational leadership and policy programs are amazing, and they're really for people who want to go into like higher education, or they want to go into like leadership roles on for K through 12 schools. And so those offer some really nice degrees in addition to our teacher certification areas. And with that, let's see, we got someone looking for the higher ed and instructional design. We do have a question. Go ahead.
If you don't mind, I just want to add in too, if you are having trouble making an appointment, or you've noticed that our availability is not going to work with your schedule, please do go ahead and email us. Sometimes we can book appointments if we can squeeze you in, or sometimes, an email can answer your question pretty quickly as well. So just don't hesitate to email us. You don't have to book an appointment for that to be your first contact with us.
Yeah, good point. We do have a question. Do I need to make an appointment to meet with an advisor? And you basically kind of answered that. But you really do have to meet with your advisor at some point. And so the emailing is kind of your extra option. But you really do have to meet with them at some point before you can register for classes. Correct, Kathleen?
Yeah, no, it really depends on where you're at in your stage, but typically when you're first starting out, you will be required to meet with us. Melanie, I'm happy to meet with you and discuss that upcoming program. I haven't been made aware of what we will need for that yet, Dr. Robinson, if maybe you and I need to get together. But so Melanie, if you would like to meet with me and we can discuss how that would work for you next fall, that's more than happy to do that.
Awesome, perfect. These were really good questions. And I did see y'all at the beginning of the chat listing where you're from. We got Fort Worth, local, not too far. Recently moved to Garland. So welcome to Texas. We have Dallas. That's where I was born. So I like kind of brag on Dallas. Bedford, very, very close. Longview, incidentally, I used to live in Longview too. So, oh, we have a new one back to Texas from North Carolina. So some awesome, great to see everyone. I think that is all the questions that we have. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. We're so glad that you were able to be with here. These are really great questions. I'm going to stick around just for a few more moments in case there's any extra questions. Please do not hesitate to email me, to email Kathleen, to email Dan. Dan, do you mind putting your email in the chat as well? But you're welcome to email any of us, and we are more than happy to help you in this journey. And if you get confused at any part of the process, or you just want to chat, let us know, and we're happy to learn about your goals. And one thing I do a lot is talk to students about, okay, tell me what you're interested in, and then I'll say, okay, here's a few things that you might be interested in. So anywho, email us with any questions you had. Like I said, I will. Oh yes, Kathleen. Kathleen's email is in the it's on the screen. But Kathleen, do you mind type? Oh, look at, she's already on it. Perfect. Like I said, I'm going to stick around for a few more moments. And so if you do have any questions that you wanted to ask, maybe not just in front of quite as many people or as part of the recording, just feel free to hang out and I will ask those. And other than that, thank you all for joining, and I hope you have a lovely evening.